All right, welcome. This is the very first public development blog for Project Milo. I started developing this online multiplayer game about almost 2 months ago, I guess. And if you're here and you're confused because this is like nothing else on this channel, you're probably not alone. I stopped making videos on this channel and I started doing other stuff, which led to me studying CG, 3D modeling, texturing, stuff like that. And that sort of led to me working on a mod for Crusader Kings 3. And then a few months ago, or 2 months ago, I decided that I wanted to start developing my own game with having a very little experience with programming, and but a lot of experience with the creative side and some of the technical art side. So I decided to just sort of make the leap and just jump right in. And this is the product of the past 2 months. I'm working in Unreal Engine, and I'm building a game that's basically, I guess you could say, a clone of Nazi zombies, some of the early COD zombies games. But it's also borrowing. I'm hoping to borrow kind of concepts from Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2. So kind of like a wave, horde-based defense game with some like skill and itemization type stuff that's kind of that you find in Risk of Rain or Binding of Isaac, or I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But I'm really excited about it, and this is really just the game that I want to play. This is what I wanted zombie what I felt like the next stage, the logical progression from the original COD zombies would be more like a sort of like deep and interesting mechanics, and they sort of went in a different direction where they were making these sort of story elements where you like uncover things and have to like take things to different locations, and there's more of this exploratory aspect to it, and that to me is really really not good for me personally, because I get lost easily. And one of the best things about uh, COD zombies was how stationary you were. You set up shop in one place and then all the enemies came to you, and being sort of cornered against the backed into a wall with your friends, being scared and whatnot. That to me was such a cool aspect of that game, and I don't want to lose that. With that said, I'm not really married to anything specifically about this. It doesn't. I This is still early on in development. This might change in the next few months, perhaps even later. But I think that if I make any serious changes to the direction of the game, they'll probably start to become. I'll become aware of them, and probably within a month maximum. Because at the end of the day, there's so many moving pieces, and I'm a one man, studio, or one man team, I guess. And I've got my hand in pretty much every aspect of the game. So let's see. I hope that sort of brings people up to date. These videos tend to be pretty long, so I don't expect many people to watch them. This is also for my own record. But Yeah, where we are right now is sort of the starting map. It's the first thing that I've. It's really, these are the first assets that I've created for the game, and I have these, out of the can animations here that the character's using. I did not do the animations, um, but I did pretty much everything else you see here, was save for a few things like these little icons I actually got from a tutorial. This gun model I actually got from the tutorial too, but I gave it this sort of fun Nerf, uh, sort of silly colors. But apart from that, pretty much everything you see is I've done. And what I did this week was this sort of little scene right here of shelves, and this whole thing, these boxes were all part of one sort of little scene, and the whole thing has a 512 by 512 texture, and I designed it in Maya so that it would be as modular as possible. So these things are broken in sections, so I can create sort of like a ruined aspect to it. The boxes, of course, are, I can sort of position anywhere I want, and I can sort of create like a prefab that I can set and disperse throughout the world, and have it all be instanced. That way the software, the the computer only has to call it once, and but it's got enough variety, it's got enough kind of interest, visual interest, and varying shapes that I think it'll actually go a long way in terms of populating this world in an interesting and dynamic way. Also, recently, not this week, but in the previous week, I was doing these walls, using these, in conjunction with using textures from a website, textures.com, and throwing them into Substance and playing with them, and merging them all together. I wind up with a result that kind of basically looks something like this. This is of course this little TV vignette, but it's the same principle as these shelves. It's a couple of meshes, and they're all part of the same UV map, and the texture looks something like this. And I find I've been finding photographs that are, a lot of them are like 90s era technology, computer cases, that sort of like vanilla cream color of computer, computers used to have, especially like the old Apple computers, or at least the ones I had when I was a kid. Of course, stereo, speakers, this television that's one of those big fat ones. So there's a little bit of that already, and there's probably going to be a lot more. And I think a lot of that just comes from me growing up in the 90s, and wanting to, I don't know, I guess revisit it, or I don't know. I'm just sort of playing it by ear. Okay, so this week has definitely been interesting. I've been following a really rich tutorial by Tom. Oh God, I always forget his name, but he's great. I think he works for Epic Games, or used to, and he's got a great co-op horde shooter tutorial that derives a lot of the functionality, or most of it, from C++ classes. So I've been following that for at least a couple weeks. I'm almost done with it, and I've got a lot of stuff to work with, and I've gone through a lot of it. I've sort of reverse engineered some of it, but I am still very green with respect to C++, but I'm getting there slowly but surely. And these classes allow me to derive a lot of like interesting things that are going to like scale into the future in terms of like adding something like physical the physical material of surfaces. So when I fire at something with this gun, these little I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. You get little particles flying out, or like when I shoot it there. Of course, those are sort of like it's like a grenade launcher. But if I spawn some zombies in the game and I shoot them with the gun, well, all of a sudden, whoops, wrong gun. I gotta differentiate those two. Well, all of a sudden, it's not doing the dust or whatever. It's doing big spatters of blood. And these particle effects I've spent a lot of time working on. I'm not happy with the blood just yet, but the muzzle flash, the little things like that, I try to spend a lot of time on, because I've said this before in previous dev blogs that I've only been sharing with like friends and stuff, that I really want killing stuff in this game to feel very satisfying, if nothing else. That's super important to me. And a lot of that comes from just my love of certain games, especially games that always keep coming back to my mind are GoldenEye, Diablo 2, I don't know, Ocarina of Time, Nazi Zombies, Resident Evil. Just I feel like all of those games had such a satisfying killing mechanic. Killing stuff just felt good, and that's sort of my MO. So yeah, that's a lot of cool stuff coming from C++, including this new wave system that I have. I've sort of used the one that I've gotten in this tutorial, and I haven't changed it much yet, but it's implemented pretty well already, and it basically uses something called an environment query system, which is something that happens at the start of the game. Is the game basically finds places that enemies can spawn, and each of these spawn points that are represented by these little red spheres, they look for the player, or more specifically, they look for the player controller, which is a client-based thing. So people on another computer playing online with me would the zombies would look for the player controller, and that distance between the zombie and the player controller can be controlled so that zombies can only spawn a certain distance away from the player. That way, for example, you wouldn't want zombies to be spawning right next to the player, because it just looks tacky. And games try to avoid that usually, because they want to sort of have like a more realistic feel or whatever. So the spawn distance right now is obviously like, it's like 200, I think, right now. But it's going to be something more like 2000 once I've got some other features implemented. And that's actually a big difference, and a kind of a huge improvement to the system that I was using before, which basically used like a blueprint spawner and a director, or so-called director, which sort of took charge of spawning the zombies at the various spawners that I would place in the world. And this one is coded into the game mode, and the game mode handles the spawns, and this query system handles kind of where they can happen, and it's super cool. It's super diverse, and it's gonna make the game feel kind of different, each time you play it, which is another really important thing to me is replay value in this game, and I don't know exactly how I'm gonna approach that, but I have many ideas, and a lot of things sort of affect that too, because I'm not sure if I want to go with a really dense horde-based game, or go with more of a Night of the Living Dead, slow-moving but bullet sponge zombies, like in Resident Evil and some other games that I really like. I haven't really decided on which direction I want to go in, but some of those things will, or both. Maybe I can incorporate both somehow, but that's going to inform some of the choices that I make about how items work and character classes work. But anyway, I don't want to get too caught in the weeds talking about that. What else happened this week? I spent a lot of time on the environment, and today I spent a lot of time banging my head against the wall with the skeleton and the rigging and all that stuff. I think by far that has been the most, I don't want to say needlessly, but just for me, just unbelievably frustrating and annoying to get stuff out of Maya and into this game and not have it completely suck ass. And I'm sure that there's a lot of user error on my part and lack of experience, but sometimes it does feel a little bit like it's needlessly frustrating to get the result that I want. So there's that. There's the environment. There's wave-based spawning and these sort of new functions in C++ that I'm going to be able to implement a lot of stuff around these things, like the wave waiting to start, the wave starting, the wave ending. And one of the first things that comes to mind is the fact that sometimes stuff messes up and the zombies don't die and the round doesn't end in the last system I had, and I feel like that's actually going to be a lot easier to avoid in this one, because I have these new functions to sort of pass things through, where I can be like, okay, after if one zombie is left alive, then if the game advances, time in the game advances 5 minutes and the zombie's still alive, we'll just kill it and just go to the next wave, because I wouldn't want people playing this game and then being stuck because there's some stupid bug or whatever. But yeah, I'm very optimistic about this game. I'm planning to release it on Steam, and of course it's going to be online multiplayer. I'm planning on making it four player online cooperative, and this game will run on you will not need a dedicated server to play this game, and hopefully you won't need to do any type of port forwarding or anything like that either. You'll be able to launch the game and host it. You or one of your friends with a copy of the game will be able to start a server, and your friends will be able to join you directly from Steam. And yeah, I mean, it'll be pretty sweet. So there's a few things that I have planned for this week, and one of them is is animations, and not doing animations, but chipping away more at this workflow of getting character assets and meshes and skeletons and animations, all this crap, getting it into the game and being able to sort of fluidly work with it. Because so far I don't have a system going, and it tends to be a headache every time I do it. But I feel like I'm getting close, so that's the good news. I do feel like I'm getting close. Oh, and I forgot to mention these little power-ups. This does heal me. In fact, it heals everyone on the team. This is a speed power-up, of course. It lasts 2 seconds. And this is a custom little thing that I did, which is a slow. Notice these power-ups actually affect the zombies too. They affect their health, their speed, on both of them. So there's some good stuff coming indeed. And I do want to demonstrate what online multiplayer will sort of look like. Let's see if I can run for no, I'll just run 2 because it's going to be too big. So as you can see, I can spawn into the game. Oh, this is in the viewport. So I can spawn into the game, and let me scooch this over a little bit. And you can see the guy over here on the top left, and things like this are going to be a lot of work's going to have to go into things like replicating. This muzzle flash, the particle effects that you can't really see too well right now, but all those things do not replicate on their own. The game tends to only, or the engine rather, tends to only replicate things that are, really obviously important, like gameplay, movement, and animations and stuff like that on the character. But this sort of extra things, muzzle flash and blah blah blah, they sort of have to be carefully. They have to be handled with care, because some things don't need to be communicated back to the server, or to client, or from server to client. All these things kind of I'm gonna have to have a hand in all of this, and I'm learning about this as I go. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see this, and I've actually I can connect to the listed server online through Steam. I have tested that already, so that's good news too. So there's a huge thing that's already kind of out of the way, just connecting to the game, and that's really a credit to the guys and gals at Epic, who made incredible networking features that work right out of the box. Because I don't think I would have even attempted to do something like this if their tools weren't so robust. And so yeah, it's really cool, and it's kind of a dream come true to be able to build a multiplayer game. So yeah, with all the things that I mentioned earlier about what I'm going to do this week, obviously it goes without saying that coding is a huge part of my to-do lists on a daily basis, or I should say learning to code. So I do stuff on Code Academy, and I do tutorials, and I try to reverse engineer stuff and try to absorb as much as I can, because that's a huge part of making games, is understanding sort of the logic and the the code behind them. But you know, you got to start somewhere. And already I feel like I'm learning so much, and I have I'm starting to develop a new vocabulary in oh, there we go. Look at there, our first crash on a public development blog. But yeah, so that's good. It's good stuff. So I hope if you're here, I hope you're not pissed off that I left for so long. If you are, then you know I don't care. But I do hope that you stick around and keep watching the development blog and stay hyped and tell your friends about it. So love you. Have a great day, and good night. Good luck.